Welcome, my evil geniuses, to another episode of World Domination. Or better known as Ancient World History with Mr. Cruz. Alright, and today we're going to be talking about a world conqueror, that great man known as Alexander. So, right now, we've been talking about Greece, and you can see Greece is located here. Well, above Greece was this place known as Macedonia. Now, Macedonia was filled with warriors who fought on horseback. Okay, so they rode around and they fought on horseback, similar to the Mongols. I know we haven't talked about them yet, but they'll come up. And if you're a big fan of Crash Course, they're always talking about the Mongols. Um, well, the king of Macedonia at this time was Philip II. In 359 BC, he became king of Macedonia. And he lived in Greece when he was young. And he was greatly influenced by the Greek culture that he experienced in his young age. I know a lot of us, a lot of you aren't old enough to really know that. When you'll always think back and be greatly influenced by the things that you experienced as a child or when you're younger. Uh, so he loved those things that he grew up with there in Greece, and it was very enamored uh, with the Greek culture. And he didn't like Persia because Persia, the Greco-Persian Wars, Greece always butted heads with Persia, and so he was not a fan of the Persian Empire. And he realized that for Greece to become an ultimate power, because Greece is very powerful, the problem is it wars with each other. And he decided that, the best way to do this is to unite Greece. And so he leaves out of Macedonia and starts working his way into Greece. And once he gets into Greece, he starts conquering, bribing, and then people just eventually start joining him voluntarily. Uh, City states. He'd come to one city state, man, he'd conquer it. Well, he's expanded, Macedonia into Greece, and, he'd conquer some. Others, he would bribe them, hey, I'll make you the leaders, I'll make you a general in my army, or um, so forth, in order to get them to join without there having to be a fight. And then some, they voluntarily joined. They were like, hey, we see what you're doing. This is great. Can we join you? Some did it out of fear because they were afraid. They knew Philip was going to just massively dominate them. He was going to roll in, and so they just joined voluntarily. Well, in 338 BC, at the Battle of Coronae, uh, he defeated Athens and Thebes, and this was the last two of the Greek city-states that really stood any chance of defeating Philip. So here is where he ended uh, the rule of the Greek city-states, and ended any chance of Greece standing up against him. And so he took over control of Greece. So he now controlled Macedonia and Greece, and he united Greece under one banner. Brought the Greeks together rather than being the individual city-states. But unfortunately, in 336, somebody capped him. Uh, Philip II was murdered. He was killed. So they called in the Scooby Gang to solve the murder. No, not really. Um, Well, his son, Alexander the Great, and remember we mentioned him before because he was a student of Aristotle. Okay, Aristotle taught Alexander the Great. Um, in 336 BC, Alexander becomes king. Okay, well, his father set things up very well for Alexander to take over immediately after him. As we've talked before, a lot of these civilizations, whenever this great ruler like Philip II dies, the heirs have a problem of deciding who's going to take over. You know, some generals want it and so forth. But Philip was very smart, and he clearly had it outlined that Alexander would take his place if something ever happened to him. Most of Macedonia and Greece knew Alexander's face. They printed money with Alexander on it. Alexander was a general in the army or a commander in the army by the age of 16. And so he had already been commanding part of the army uh, for 4 years by the time that he became king. Um, there were statues built so that people knew who Alexander was. He was known to be the next king if anything happened to Philip. So they already knew from early on that this would be their next ruler. And so Alexander decides to carry on his father's work. And he was again greatly influenced by Greece and decided, his father didn't like the Persian army, that he was going to go on as well to destroy this Persian empire. So in 334 BC, he invaded Asia Minor, and he was victorious. 333 BC, at the Battle of Issus, he again was victorious, and he defeated a larger Persian army. In 332 BC, he captured Syria and Egypt. Okay, and this is where he built the city of Alexandria, which a large part of it, there disappeared. One of the great wonders of the world, the lighthouse at Alexandria, was built at this location as well. So that's one of the seven ancient wonders of the world. Was the lighthouse at Alexandria. And in 331 BC, he continued on, and Gagamela, again he was victorious, and there he easily defeated the rest of the Persian Empire. In 326 BC, he goes on and into India. This dude is unstoppable. He is victorious at every battle he goes into. And one reason they call him the Great, and you can see kind of his warpath here. He leads here and he goes on. He comes, captures this, and heads back out here and continues to take this to where he ends the Persian Empire, and he heads on over into India, conquering India. Um, so all this in purple is what his empire at one point. But he charged into battle at the front of the battle. That's one reason they called him the Great. He rode in. He was in the front of the battle, and he would get, wounded or whatever, but he always rode in. He was fearless. He charged and led the battle. Where a lot of kings and rulers, they sit back and send their soldiers in, he led them in. Well, they'd been gone for a long time. They didn't go here and then come back, go here and then come back. They left and they were gone the whole time. And by 324 BC, his troops, it's like, man, we really want to go home. And he realized that his troops were going to mutiny if he didn't turn around. So in 324, he turns around. And this picture is a great demonstration of Alexander's character. One of the soldiers brought him a helmet full of water and said, we found this water. And they were traveling across this great desertous area. And they brought him this helmet of water. And he's like, well, rather than I drink and no one else drink, no one shall drink. And he pours the water out, showing that he was no better than, his men. He was a king of the people. Well, on the way home, he had suffered some battle scars or some wounds in battle by leading these charges. And in 323, he's planning another war. He's planning on going on into the rest of, and taking over India and the rest of Asia. And so what he does is he's planning this out, but because of his wounds, he gets sick and winds up dying. And nobody expected Alexander to die at the age of 32. So his empire falls apart after his death because there's no heir that's set up. He didn't think ahead like his father Philip II had, that by setting forth an heir. And so his empire is divided into four territories: Egypt, Macedonia, Pergamum, and the Seleucid Empire. And you can kind of see those here. Purple, you got the Macedonian up here, the Seleucid Empire over here. Okay, um, but Alexander leaves this great legacy. And there you talk about how he was fearless and how he charged into battle. Um, he started what was known the Hellenistic period. The Hellenistic period is where they uh, spread the Greek culture all over Asia, uh, Europe, and this culture of Greece spreads across the world to where Greece has influenced us today. Greece goes on to influence Rome, and Rome influences us. But this is what is known as the Hellenistic period, and you can see here is a drawing of the uh, lighthouse at Alexandria, and this is actually Alexandria today. Um, so until next time, deuces.